Ding, 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 ding. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello back there. Hello. My name is Alix Jules. I'm the Executive Director for the Fellowship of Freethought. Today is July 15th, 2012. Before we get too far into it, I have a picture that I want to share. That. Yeah. Yesterday was our full-on faith participation with the Dallas-Fort Worth Coalition of Reason, where we put differences aside for a few hours and got together as humanists, regardless of causal reasoning, with people of faith and non-faith, and sorted, reclaimed, and repackaged 7,923 pounds of food at the North Texas Food Bank, resulting in an estimated 6,603 meals just from the coalition alone. I just want to stress that, just from the coalition alone. That doesn't also take into account some of our team spilling over and helping some of these smaller Christian groups. That's us doing good without God. We had nearly 60 from the core alone, the largest single showing from any group. For those that missed it, you also missed Zach giving the opening benediction and leading us in song. Imagine that. Imagine that. So thank you very much, Zach. We all appreciate that. And you definitely gave us something to remember. And even with those numbers, close to 60, I know we can and should do better. Right? It was very nice to see over the weekend that we hit about 1,000 people on Meetup, which is a great milestone, right? 1,000 people on Meetup are now affiliated with the fellowship. Woohoo! What are we going to do with that, right? What are we really going to do with that? Well, isn't that a good problem to have, right? Yeah. And a lot of we're seeing a lot of those numbers spill out into some of our social events, et cetera. We're not seeing them here. And that's kind of okay, really, because as Howard said, what are we going to do if they all show up? But the fact of the matter is, I don't need you all here. I want you all here. I need you all out there doing things that, like we did this weekend, changing the face of free thought, showing everyone that we can do good without God. That's the real impact that I hope to see with groups developing like we are. Okay? Okay, so brief disclaimer as to when talking about this particular topic. We're going to be talking a little bit about leadership and organization. We're going to spill into politics a little bit. We are not affiliated with nor endorse any particular political party, candidate, etc., nor do we discriminate on such basis. However, in modern discourse, politics and organizational development is relevant, so it is something that we need to discuss in context. Okay, so Aristotle characterized humankind as the distinctively political animal. And political theorists ever since have used Aristotle's term as a touchstone. But what does it mean? What does politics mean? And equally important, how does this trait, if indeed it is distinctive, originate and develop as the human species evolved from an arboreal primate ancestor? Unfortunately, there has never been a real consensus even on how to define the term politics, much less how to explain it. In fact, the cumulative index for the 8-volume Handbook of Political Science, the most comprehensive synthesis of political science attempted, does not even include a citation for a definition of politics, nor is the term political evolution listed in the index. It is only within the last 35 years or so, dating back to the emergence of so-called biopolitics, that a serious effort has been made to account for political behavior from an evolutionary or biological perspective. Traditionally, political theorists have either treated the subject in a historical manner or have traced its roots back to the classical Greeks. Nevertheless, over the course of the past 3 decades, much has been learned in a number of different disciplines that sheds new light on these issues. It may well be that an evolutionary perspective can serve as an arbiter, or better said, a bridge that can reconcile and integrate the competing schools of political theory. In his classic dialogue, The Republic, Plato proceeded from the core premise that the polis, or polity, is fundamentally an economic association. It is very different in character from an amorphous aggregation of individuals who happen to share a common language, territory, or culture, and may or may not engage in arm's length exchanges. A polity is characterized by specialization of roles and a division of labor, or more precisely, a combination of labor, and equally important, interdependence with respect to the satisfaction of our various needs and wants. As Plato observed, a city or a state is a response to human needs. No human being self-sufficient, and all of us have many wants. Since each person has many wants, many partners and purveyors will be required to furnish them. Owing to this interchange of services, a multitude of persons will gather and dwell together in what we now call a city or state. This goes beyond the idea of family as a model for organization, though in political philosophy, the model of family is relevant in describing some of the interactions or evolution of certain governing bodies. Families get big, often evolving from various natural and eventual cultural needs, often into tribes, often branching off based on some stimuli or need, demand for food, power, or other natural or biological response. We can easily envision this with your own families, actually, right? You get too big, whether it is because of interdependence, strained resources, differences in opinion, power, whatever, you branch off. Families, tribes, or sometimes small monarchies, often with certain family members leading through power, implicit or explicit, etc. So, we see very similar traits in our cousins, chimpanzees, and other primates. Just as our communications and needs have evolved over millions of years, so has our political or demand system. We see related traits. Franz de Waal actually covers this a little bit in Chimpanzee Politics, Power and Sex Among Apes, written 82, where the struggle for power and influence is clearly defined, but often driven by survival of the gene, especially with social animals. We see stable dominance hierarchies are required for maintaining peace, arbitrating disputes, limiting destructive competition, mobilizing collective action, even defending the group against outside threats. The intense interdependence of social animals like chimpanzees and bonobos also leads to a degree of reciprocity and generosity, such as food sharing. In fact, there may even be a degree of democratic participation in various group decision-making process. The dynamics may differ from one group to another, or one group to the next, or even within the same group over time. Aristotle argued that the natural progression of human beings was from the family via small communities to the polis, the best people rule, seen as aristocratic rule. The concept evolved most notably in ancient Greece, whereby a council of famous citizens was commonly used and contrasted with direct monarchy, in which an individual king held power. The Greeks didn't like the concept of monarchy. So let us construct, excuse me, a city beginning with its origins, keeping in mind that the origin of every real city is human necessity. However, we're not all alike. There is a diversity of talents. Consequently, one person is best suited to one particular occupation and another to another. We can conclude then that production in our city will be more abundant and the products more easily produced and of better quality, and each does the work nature, et cetera, has equipped them with. In other words, an organized polity or state produces mutually beneficial synergies, primarily economic, but synergies. It is its quintessentially a collective survival enterprise, a functionally interdependent superorganism, no longer a family, but an interrelated body with many interdependencies and evolved complex systems. Our lower level appetites and urges manifestly serve our needs, but they can also become destructive both to the community and to ourselves. As Aristotle observed in the Politics 1 and 2, man was, when perfected, is the best of animals, but when separated from law and justice is the worst of all. Our prodigious appetites must therefore be constrained by higher level dictates of reason, along with our social and ethical impulses, and by the collective actions of the community to protect and preserve itself. Aristotle therefore posited that politics must involve itself in more than just economics, and also the equitable rewards for the proper exercise of our abilities and our calling and our conduct in a network of interdependent economic relationships known as social justice. The collective survival enterprise is not therefore exclusively an economic association. All right, so Aristotle also stressed that human nature is not an autonomous agency. It entails a set of innate aptitudes that are uniquely fitted for society and that can only be developed in a network of social relationship. Thus, social lives involve more than being simply a marketplace for economic transactions. It also involves a life in common. We are all enriched by it indeed. A hermit is not only economically deprived, he or she is not fully human, and equally important, has no evolutionary future. Okay? So politics as defined is an evolutionary response to survival, and therefore worthwhile discussion point. So today we're going to be talking about that. As you see, this is not our typical setup where we're talking to you. This is going to be a very activity-driven gathering. I'm going to bring up Jamye Carr to kick this off, and you'll see the relevance shortly.
Okay, do I have any people in here who have played Civilization before? All right, excellent. If you've played Civilization, this might come as no surprise to you. I was actually talking to my mother about this last night, and it really kind of hit home for me how different I live now than I grew up. I grew up in the country, and my parents live 37 miles from the nearest stoplight. So they really don't have interaction with other human beings unless it's absolutely necessary. And my mom came, and of course, I'm moving to suburbia in Carrollton right now, and my mom was helping me move, and she's like, how can you live this close to another house? Because our houses in Carrollton are about 2 feet apart. And she's like, I feel so claustrophobic. It's like, what are all of these people doing here? And I went, well, it's a city, Mom. And she says, well, but what do they do? Like, there's too many people. They can't all have jobs. And I'm like, well, a lot of them don't. But, you know, the more people, the more jobs there are to be had. And so trying to explain this to her was kind of like trying to teach chess to your dog, because she just doesn't have a reference point for why so many people would live in one place at the same time. So I want to start off our activity and give you guys an opportunity, because you will be working with the people at your table. Do I have at least 3 people at each table? If you're sitting at a table with less than 3 people, if you could consolidate a little bit. What I'm going to do is each one of your tables is going to be a country. And your country is going to be a government that I will define for you. We have meritocracies, we have technocracies, we have dictatorships, We have true democracy, which is one person, one vote. We also have Republican democracies where the people at your table will vote to elect a leader to make the decisions for you. Then I have two scenarios, and every group with your partners at your table will determine what the benefits and drawbacks to your system of government would be in dealing with the scenario that you've been given. Does that make sense? Is everybody on the same page? Then at the end of the meeting today, we are going to invite one person at each table to stand up briefly and share kind of the struggles that your government had dealing with the issue, or if your government was like, man, we handled that, that was not a problem. Then let us know. Let us know, like, this is why this system of government would be very effective. This is why it wouldn't, just so that we can kind of get some discussion going among the people at each table. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand out, and I'm going to do this randomly, so if you get one that you don't like, just trade and don't let me see it. I'm a teacher. I know what you guys do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand out the different forms of government, and you can read it and share with the people at your table. Introduce each other, introduce yourselves to each other so that you know who you're working with and who's going to make the grab for dictatorship at your table. So, because the dictator is going to have to seize control of the table. So, all right. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, guys, I want to draw your attention to a couple of the questions. These questions are actually printed on the sheets that you got so that you can keep them in mind as we go through the activity. The questions are, what are the benefits of your type of leadership over others? What about the system made your actions difficult? And what are the key factors to making your government structure successful, right? For example, and I'm going to step on you dictators, I'm very sorry, but in having a dictatorship, if you have a good, benevolent, smart dictator, it's going to make a big difference from having a dictator who, doesn't know how to tie his shoes in the morning. So that can be a limiting factor in the success of your government system. So scenario number one is invasion. Invaders are encroaching on your country, threatening the lives of property and the lives and property of your citizens. These invaders appear technologically superior to your growing society, but you have defendable territory and a large number of citizens demanding that you do something to protect them. You have a potential ally in an adjoining territory, but he is demanding a very high price for protection. Paying his premium might mean that your people cannot make it through the harsh winter. Okay, so have a discussion with the people at your table. How would you and your governmental system make the decisions on what to do in this scenario? If you wish to take notes, I do have blank pieces of paper on each table, and I'm happy to loan you pens. I've got pens up here as well. If you need any starters, call me over. I'll be happy to help get you started. But I'm going to give you about 6 to 7 minutes to discuss this with your table, okay?
Two-minute warning.
Okay, guys, I want to wrap this up real quick. We're going to go ahead and do, just because we, as the Fellowship of Freethought, we are an organization and we do have leaders. Part of this activity I wanted to be to take breaks between the scenarios and introduce some of our board members. And we're going to start with Alix and myself. And he's going to talk a little bit about how our board is organized, because I think there are a lot of people, myself included, who have been kind of confused about how the board of directors here at the fellowship works. And so Alix is going to introduce himself and kind of what his role is as executive director. And then we will come back with scenario number 2. Okay? And we'll wrap up and give all of our feedback at the end, okay?
Okay. I get to talk about myself. Yay. Okay, so quite often in organizations, they tend to somewhat lump themselves or organize themselves around something in common. For us, it's primarily, we're free thinkers. But we do have shared organizational goals. And what we've tried to do over the last few years is make sure that the board of directors really reflects what the organization is trying to do. Now, many people here only see us as, well, one really big meetup group. But the fact of the matter is we do a lot more, or we continuously try and do a lot more. And you can actually see some of that reflected in how our board is somewhat organized. We have an outreach director that focuses primarily on outreach, making sure that we have opportunities for charity, because a lot of our members are humanists. I think we all are humanists, but would identify themselves as humanists or secular humanists. And that is one of the tenets that we have built the fellowship on. Yes, please do. Our outreach director. Now, notice she said everyone should stand up, and she sat down and waved. We are over the next, yeah. All right. Okay. And then we have our social director, which is responsible for, I think she's outside, responsible for coordinating a lot of our social events. So I hear we had a very, very successful pub night last night. A lot of the events that you're seeing on Meetup or on Facebook, Whitney's putting that out, et cetera. So that's something that we want to continue to promote. Education director, Jamye Carr, who is responsible for making sure we have opportunities to educate ourselves, whether it's speakers, the gathering itself, which is her responsibility, or making sure other events are out there and coordinated, and our children are getting educated primarily. She works with the youth director to make sure that happens. We have 6 at-large directors who work in various tasks. I mean, these are multifaceted, multi-tenant people, talented people, excuse me, multi-tenant. Media coordinator, Steve works on making sure a lot of our equipment is set up, et cetera. Info technology, operations coordinator, Don is doing that right now. Member services, making sure a lot of the needs of our organization are being taken into account or cared for. We have our finance director, Justin. We do have we have a budget. We have an operating budget. You hear myself or Zach stand up here and talk about Freethought is not free, and yes, that's true. It takes money to get us here during the gatherings, but we also help sponsor some organizations when possible. We are spending money on various things, children's supplies, et cetera. So we have a finance director that coordinates all of that. And of course, we have Georgine as our treasurer. She's been acting in that capacity since the beginning. And we are a 501c3 organization. And then we have Amanda, who's our youth director, who's very much responsible for making sure that the kids are taken care of in various ways. So we have very much organized the organization to reflect what we think important, and we think that it is shown here. We're going to be getting, slide aside, we're going to be getting into a little bit more detail on this. Next week we have our board meeting. We do meet monthly, but it is an open general meeting as well at the Dallas Resource Center. It will be, I think it's open at 10:30. We said 10:30 to all members that want to come and talk. Make sure if you think this is wrong, you know what? We want your feedback. If you think that we should be focusing on something else, you want to see those 1,000+ meetup members doing something, right? Again, please show up and be heard, okay? So myself, I am here. I've been here since the inception of the group, 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years now. I'm the current executive director. Zach was the executive director before me. My responsibility as his was to facilitate that the organizational goals are reached, achieved. I do help set some of the direction, the agenda, et cetera, make sure things are carried out in a timely and an expeditious manner. I schedule and conduct a lot of the board meetings, and I do interface not only with you all, but the other organizations within the Dallas-Fort Worth Coalition, and I happen to be the public face for the organization now. We're elected on a yearly basis, and I'm not going to read each of the roles and responsibilities because, again, if you want to get into the details of this, we can next week. All right? All right, so why do I do this? I do this because I'm an incidental activist. I'll say that over and over again. I do this because I'm a father. I do this because I have children that want to be more vocal, and for them to be more vocal, I have to be more vocal. All right, this organization for me has been a great way of making sure my family, my friends, et cetera, my kids have access to other children that aren't going to be judgmental or as judgmental as they've encountered in school. So that's why this is important to me. This organization's success is very personal. So, all right. Any questions on that, on my role? Oh, look at that. Oh, done. It is a week from today. Thank you. So it is next week at 10:30, Resource Center. We'll post something up on Meetup if you all are interested, and everyone who's watching that's not here, tell your friends if they're members. If you want input, we'll be doing. Yes. We are all volunteers. None of us are paid. Right. Anything else? And right now, I will say sometimes it's consuming, sometimes not so much, but the bigger the organization gets, the more demands, the more time. And so yeah, it is 100% volunteer. Yep. Anything else? All right, Jamie.
All right, we're ready for our scenario number 2. I don't know why it says scenario number 1. I apologize. I was like, this is what I get for doing this PowerPoint at 1 a.m. in the morning last night. As Zach knows, because I am in the process of moving currently, and I had to drive around looking for a free Wi-Fi hotspot because my husband thought it would be a good idea to get our internet shut off at the old place before it was hooked up at the new place. So I was literally at 11 o'clock at night driving around looking for a Wi-Fi signal so that I could send this to Zach. All right, so scenario number 2, discovery. Okay. Miners in the most mineral-rich part of your country have begun to come up sick. After sending in teams to investigate, you find massive deposits of uranium and transuranic minerals. These chemicals have nearly unlimited potential in various medical, technological, and weapons potential. Your country must develop a plan to utilize this resource in the most beneficial way possible. You can use it for yourselves, you can sell it, you can use it to make weapons, you can use it to make weapons to sell, you can use it to make technology to sell or medical technology to sell, or to use for your own country or your own good. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to discuss with your table what you think your governmental system would do. Again, if your table is a democracy, you take a vote on it and come up with a decision. If your table's a dictatorship, we listen to our dictator and decide what he wants to do with it, okay? And in 5 minutes, I'm going to come back and we'll do my introduction, and then we'll do the wrap-up where one person from each table is going to stand up and talk about the decisions that their country made, okay? So here's your scenario number 2.
I know, there's just nowhere to go after that.
Okay. All right, we're gonna wrap up this particular section. Is everyone okay on, yes? Yes? No? Okay, let's go ahead and wrap that one up. I've been walking around listening to some of your conversation. Excellent, a lot of dialogue. That you can wrap up. Hello? I think you're having success. All right, I'm gonna bring up.
We have a container over here making a missile silo with.
Y'all are having way too much fun. You are all having way too much fun on this one. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna bring up.
Where the missile comes out.
I'm gonna bring up Jamye Carr, our education director. It's always interesting to see people's different perspectives on this particular role. So I'm excited to have Jamye up here. So, all right.
All right, I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. We're running a little bit behind. I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher since I was about 5. And I would actually line up my stuffed animals on the side of my room, and I would teach them how to read. So there were, I had this little stuffed giraffe, and he just wouldn't listen. So I learned how to discipline my stuffed animals. I have classroom management skills down pat because I've been doing it since I was a little kid. I've had as many careers as you could possibly imagine. I've done everything from being a bouncer at a nightclub to being a pastry chef in the morning to teaching night classes, and now I'm currently a high school teacher in the Capel School District. I teach biology and chemistry. I am certified to teach all sciences from astronomy to zoology and everything in between. I love teaching, and it is a passion of mine. As education director, however, I want to be very careful not to make this all about my interests, because my job as education director is that, but ignore that. What it is I make the meetings happen and decide and contact speakers and make sure that we have something to do during these gatherings. Now, I don't want to get up here and make every meeting about zombies because I'm really interested in them. So it'll get really boring really fast. I tried to branch out this time because I know zilch about government, really. It never interested me. I think I failed government or tested out of it in high school because I didn't remember any of this stuff. And I had to go to my husband, who's a history major, to get all this information. So I want to branch out, and I want to kind of stretch myself and my teaching abilities to, include things that I don't know much about, because I think educating people is as much about educating yourself as anything else. Now, with that in mind, instead of spending more time talking about myself, I'd like to, did we lose a slide? With that in mind, instead of introducing myself, I would like to take a moment to ask you, on the small pieces of paper that I've given to you, I would like for you to write a couple of things down for me. I would like for you to write down a topic that you would like to learn about or hear more information about, regardless of whether you know anything about it. If you're like, man, I really like stained glass, and I'd like to learn about the history of stained glass, write it down. I don't care how kind of ridiculous out there it is. Then, number 2, I would like for you to put down a topic that you are qualified to provide information on. That doesn't mean that I'm going to call you and ask you to get up here and teach or get up here and speak. But if we have somebody that wants to get up here and talk about the mating habits of, South American coatis, and I have, oh, wow, I know a guy who studies coatis for a living. Why don't we contact him and see if he has anything that he can contribute as well? So a topic that you're qualified to provide information on. And the third is whether or not you're willing to speak. If you would like to get up here and do a presentation or do an activity or sing a song or read a poem or dance, you know, whatever, then please let me know that you, yes, are willing to speak, or no, or not. And then your name and contact information. I do tend to email quite a bit more than I'll call you, because I don't know when you're going to be able to answer your phone. And as a teacher, I'm never able to call or receive calls during the day. But if you give me your email address and you want to talk about something, then I'll be happy to email you and put you on the speaker list. What I'm trying to do here is gather information about you guys as members of the group and put together a speaker or contact person database, so that I can go through and find things that you guys might be interested that it never would have crossed my mind to bring up as a topic. So if you guys could do that and just slip those into like the donation buckets, or give them to me personally when we go to potluck, then I would really appreciate it, because it would help me do my job better. Sorry, we're making a little adjustment because we have kids, and we're gonna have the kids in first, and then we're gonna stand up and share while the kids go get something to eat, and then we'll. So we're rearranging the program a little bit.
Hi, I'm Ann Crumpacker, and I have two representatives here from the 2 to 6-year-old kids' room. We had a fantastic time, and these young men are going to tell you all about it. Eugene, do you want to start first? Okay, Eugene's going to tell us about what we did with balloons. Come down here. Can you tell? Say, what did we do?
What did we do?
Yeah, what did we do? Yeah, we talked about static electricity. Yes, we did. We talked about static electricity. Show them what we did with the balloon.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Watch. Okay, good job. And Devin, you want to come and talk about, so what did we do with, today we did something very interesting with paper clips. What did we do?
Surface tension.
We did surface tension with paper clips. What happened to the paper clips?
They sank and float.
They sank and float. How can you make paper clips float in water?
With surface tension.
With surface tension. We bent them up, didn't we?
Yeah.
And they look just like, do you remember these bugs?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look just like the water skimmer bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. You want to talk?
Today we played games.
What games did you play? You forgot? Sorry. Was it called Sorry? No? You did a different game? You want to describe what you did, if you don't know the name? Okay. Go ahead.
The game that we're playing right now was Yahtzee.
Yahtzee, and did you do the
Ping pong?
the table tennis? Yeah.
Oh, excuse you. And we learned how to burp. Anything else? No? Okay. Anyone else? You want to come back? No? Yes, no?
We done.
whole. Done? You done? Okay. And I don't think we have, oh, let's see. Okay, can I get some technical assistance here? Thank you. All right, I don't think the older ones came in. I don't know what they did. They were outside doing the, is it Mentos and the soda? So that, and they were doing some other stuff inside. You'll have to grab them during the potluck and ask them. And we had 3 littles today. We went across the street to the park until the sun came out. And oh, and what else did we do? Really? Did you have fun? Yeah? Tell them. You don't know? All done? Thank you. See you next month. Okay. Now, if you guys haven't decided who you're going to either elect or select, or as I would say, if you want to volunteer the person across from you, to stand up and talk very briefly about some of the challenges that your government faced and some of the ways you could overcome those challenges. This is going to be our wrap-up portion. I'm going to put the discussion questions up on the board so that you can have those available. So this is just a basic stand and share. Does anybody want to volunteer? Melanie's going to volunteer.
Decision making is greatly simplified, especially over
John, and I'm the spokesman for the People's Democratic Republic of Dina Zimmerman. We were a Democratic Republic. We elected Dina because she was clearly, she had leadership qualities. The benefit is the leader can get input from everybody. The drawback, our benefits and drawbacks really were hand in hand. The drawback is that not everybody's solution can be implemented. We can all make suggestions to the leader, but the leader's got to make I'm going to go right to the difficulty. There was inevitably there was a tremendous amount of pressure on the leader because the leader is the one who has to come up with a solution, even though it's not going to be a solution that everybody wants. And there was also a difficulty if the leader thinks that she has a better solution than the majority, then a lot of people are going to feel disenfranchised and
talking about bread and circuses, and that was one of the circuses part of things. You know, the ability once you have nuclear power and that sort of thing to provide the bread half of that equation is pretty easy. But we also determined that it's kind of sinister and cynical, but in order to keep that kind of government in place, you're also going to have that very efficient, I'm going to call it communication, but really propaganda machine to explain what's going on and why.
Like God complex would be put in place of these people who are experts.
That's difficult. Same problem we have with dictatorships, right?
How do you kind of very sort of structure?
we have another theocracy?
We've got one more theocracy.
We got one more theocracy. I want to hear this one.
We had a problem that I guess they didn't have, which was, and it's kind of a problem most theocracies have, we really couldn't pick a religion. Like, how about this kind of religion, how about that one? And then we settled on polytheism, yay Romans. But then we had the problem, like, what kind of polytheistic council were we going to be? Was each god going to get a vote, or was the god of politics going to rule over the other one? So we really didn't get into any of the problems. We spent most of our time trying to iron out what kind of religious theocracy we were. We did take a stab at solving some of the problems with the invasion. I had the crazy idea. It was like, well, those other people are infidels. Let's just have the suicide bombers. But then other people wanted to talk with them. We just never really made that first fundamental decision as to what kind of theocracy we were, and that really bogged us down. We came up with a lot of fun stuff, but we were not effective as a
All right, thank you very much for sharing. The group back there, you said you use pop culture for Mormonism. Please tell me, at least use South Park as a reference, no? It's only a few errors in that episode, very few. It's, incredible. Okay, if you all liked this format, please, I know that Jamye is looking for feedback and information, so go ahead and please, whenever you get a chance, walk up to her. All right, so announcements. All right, the cost of Freethought, it should be the price of Freethought. Freethought is not free. As we discussed earlier, we are collecting here. It is easy to set it up via Google Wallet or PayPal. We'll take your money in any which way you give it to us. There are donation boxes usually at some of our events and here as well. Your contributions are deductible. We are 501c3. They go towards renting this place monthly. Children's supplies, equipment, which is often borrowed. We are working on building a budget to buy some of our own. Also social outreach initiatives and growth. At next week's meeting, we will be talking about growth as well. For a long time, a lot of us have been talking about, what about a building? What about a building? We're going to talk a little bit about the drawbacks and benefits to having it and what we could potentially do with it. Also, remember that we do have a green initiative in regards to plates during the potluck. Don't throw away your plates. They are heavily recycled, cleaned, and brought back to you. And being a good potluck person, rule of thumb, bring at least enough food to feed yourself and your guests and family, main dish, etc. All these instructions are always on the meetup. And last announcement, actually two announcements. One is the Women of Reason conference, the Feminine Faces of Freethought conference, I am glad to say is scheduled, and it is September 15th at the Resource Center. Tickets are available. You can actually get them. They are actually on the bulletin board. All right. Also, we have a lot of upcoming things coming up: secular alternative recovering from religion, Freethought foodies, Freethought fitness, additional outreach, Aid Service of Dallas, Adopt a Highway. Like I said, we actually do a lot. All right. With that, next month, I actually need volunteers for coffee. Georgina and Howard are not going to be here, so if you would, please, at the end of this, come see myself or Howard, etc. All right. Thank you very much, and we will see you next month. Let's go ahead and start the potluck.